All right, as we look at Luke chapter 18, I'm just going to focus only on the parable of the persistent widow. The entire chapter of Luke 18 does not necessarily pertain to the end of the age, but this section here is continuing seamlessly from what Jesus was discussing in Luke 17. And so Luke 17 is very much about the end of the age, the tribulation, the coming of the Son of Man. It's very end of the age focused. And so Luke 18 continues seamlessly from that discussion. And if you want to go back and look at that, I do have separate notes and video on this section of Luke 17, starting in verse 22. Then we're going to continue on in this discussion into this parable in Luke 18. With that context set of the end of the age, this is awesome. Because then Jesus jumps into this parable about unceasing prayer at the end of the age. And he told them a parable to the effect that they ought always to pray and not lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor respected man. And there was a widow in that city who kept coming to him and saying, "Give me justice for my adversary." But while he refused, afterward he said to himself, "Though I neither fear God or respect man, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will give her justice, so that she will not beat me down with her continual coming." And the Lord said, this is what Jesus says, "Hear what the unrighteous judge says. And will not God give justice to his elect, who cry out to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? I tell you, he will give them justice speedily." Now, this context for the Jewish mindset of the elect crying out day and night, this has actually been prophesied before. I've got this cross-reference for you in the notes. Out of Isaiah 62. Isaiah 62, "On your walls, O Jerusalem, I have set watchmen. All day and all night they will not be silent. You who put the Lord to remembrance, those who are loyal to the covenant to the end, take no rest and give God no rest until he establishes Jerusalem and makes it a praise on the earth." And Isaiah 62, we've talked about that chapter before. We actually have a whole recording and notes on that too, if you want to go back to that. That's an awesome little reference to an unceasing prayer movement for the fulfillment of all God's promises for the end of the age. And that's exactly what's being described here. A faithful people, elect people who are crying out day and night. And their prayers, their persistent prayers, prompt justice to be released. In Isaiah 30, verse 19, this cross-reference is in the notes. "For a people will dwell in Zion, in Jerusalem you will weep no more, because he will surely be gracious to you at the sound of your cry." Isaiah 42 talks about songs filling the ends of the earth, and the Lord goes out like a mighty man of war. It actually initiates the ultimate justice, which will be the coming of the Son of Man. And then Isaiah 64, this prayer of intercession, where even the survivors in Israel are praying this prayer. "From of old, no one has heard or perceived by ear. No eye has seen a God beside you who acts for those who wait for him." For those who are calling on his name as they're interceding for him right there, crying out for justice. And Jesus here is describing the answer to that prayer, heaven's response to say God will give justice. He will give them speedy justice. Suddenly, in a moment, boom, the justice will break in. And of course it does at the end of the age with the release of the coming of the Son of Man and the final deliverance of Israel, the defeat of all those adversaries and everything that happens there in the context of what we just looked at above. Again, Luke 17 puts this into an end-time context that has very fascinating implications. And then, of course, to conclude the parable, Jesus says, "Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will the Son of Man find this kind of faith that is sustaining night and day prayer for justice and for the coming of the Son of Man? Will the Son of Man find this kind of prayer on the earth when he returns? Where will he find it? It's upon the elect to embrace their identity as a people of prayer and embody the spirit of the temple long after its destruction in 70 AD. Isaiah 24 talks about, I've got this cross-reference in the notes, but it is worship and prayer filling the earth from east to west in the context of the end of the age in Isaiah 24. Ephesians 2, the Apostle Paul talked about how God would build together the people of God as a living embodiment of the temple, well beyond just the context of Jerusalem itself. 1 Peter 2, same thing. He says, you yourselves, like living stones, are being built together as a spiritual house, a holy priesthood. Again, what did the priesthood do? Give in charge of the temple and the continual offerings and the continual prayers. And then Luke 21. We just looked at Luke 21 just briefly this week. Let me pull this over to parallel view this on the screen so you can see both of them side by side. This encouragement to watch yourselves. In Luke 21, at the end of Luke 21, this is Luke's account of the Olivet Discourse. And he says, stay awake at all times, praying that you may have the strength to escape all these things that are going to take place. And we talked about what that means a lot more in our notes and video for Luke 21. But Luke mentions prayer again in this context of the end of the age, the same way that Jesus talks about it here in Luke 17. I find it fascinating that Luke concludes both of those accounts with this story of this encouragement to prayer. And really, beyond that point, we move on to another context in Luke 18. That's all of Luke 18 that we're going to cover, but it's enough. It's fascinating stuff.